New Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals ruling requires judges to act like prosecutors. I'm Tulsa attorney James Worth. We're talking about the case of State of Oklahoma versus Emily Suzanne Akers. That case number is S-2021-378. That deals with a mother who had a miscarriage at 20 weeks, went to the hospital, and was found to have methamphetamine in her system and the system of the fetus. And the state got word of that, and they decided to charge her with manslaughter related to the miscarriage. That went to a preliminary hearing, and that's where the state is required to prove each element of the offense of manslaughter by the burden of proof of probable cause that she committed this crime. And ultimately, the magistrate judge at the preliminary hearing found there wasn't sufficient evidence to meet, under these facts, manslaughter. Essentially, what the judge is finding is that under these facts, it doesn't really fit manslaughter. So the case was kicked at that point and went up to appeal to the district judge, and the district judge agreed with the magistrate. From that point, the state appealed to the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. And once the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals got that case, they made an interesting ruling. They essentially agreed that it did not meet the requirements for manslaughter, but they noted that 5-6 months prior to the preliminary hearing in this case, they had ruled that under these facts, the mother could be charged with child neglect. And the court remanded the case back in order for the state essentially to prosecute a child neglect case, telling the prosecutor what to do, and that essentially putting the onus on the judge to determine the appropriate charge rather than just deciding what the state has brought is appropriate or not. So there was a dissent filed in this case by Judge Rowland, and I want to read some of that. It kind of gives you the idea on how unusual this is. So 6 months before the preliminary hearing was held, this court held in Green v. State, 2020 OCCA 18, that exposing an unborn child to methamphetamine causing death could be prosecuted as child neglect. Unlike in Green, however, the state in this case neither charged Akers with child neglect nor argued the existence of evidentiary support for that offense at the preliminary hearing. And child neglect has never been raised or mentioned in any of these pleadings, talking about in the appeal. It is true that Title 22, Section 264 requires a defendant to be bound over for any charge supported by the evidence, but this court has never interpreted that section to require the preliminary hearing magistrate to search the law books to make sure the district attorney has not inadvertently or otherwise failed to file some supported charge. To direct the district court to revisit the case with an eye toward charging it differently than elected by the prosecution when there has been no intervening change in the law or the facts seems to me an improvident incursion into the discretion of the district attorney that could invite future mischief we have not considered. So there you have it. For the first time ever, rather than just ruling on the issue before it and whether the elements based on probable cause has been met for manslaughter, this court has decided that it wasn't met for that. It was met for something else that was not charged, and we're going to send it back, directing the magistrate to allow it to be bound over on that. So what that means is that the court is telling the magistrate, you did it wrong. You should have searched the law books. You should have fixed the issue for the prosecutor, and you should have made sure they prosecuted it the right way. That puts the magistrate judge in the position of being a prosecutor rather than trying to be somebody who is more neutral. Now, if the defense makes a mistake, I can guarantee you the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals is not going to require that the magistrate fix that mistake. But here, that's what is happening, and it's a little bit concerning that the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals is pushing magistrates to the side of the prosecutor to act like a prosecutor rather than being neutral. If you got any questions about that case or any matter of law in Oklahoma, you're going to want to talk to an attorney about your circumstances privately, confidentially. You get that scheduled with someone at my office. You can go online to makelawEasy.com.